Do your thing. Fuck, wrong button. And
Perfect.
record.
Nothing like starting a podcast with fuck.
Fuck, wrong button. And Cobblecast Part 3, August 29th, Sunday, August 29th, 2021, 2:09 p.m. Eastern Time. And just as I was about to say, and I'm permanently suspended from YouTube, I realized the name of the episode, Cobblecast, just how easy my problems are right now. There are 13 families that don't have kids anymore, and I'm sitting here saying I got banned. So yeah, it's insanity, man. It's absolute insanity.
It's actually, everybody's a casualty in what is with what's going on now, not just Kabul. Kabul is another sign and symptom of the bigger problem in this world, and in particular in this country. And you're obviously a casualty as well. You're getting banned from YouTube because you're quoting what somebody else said about take vitamins, and you get can't. It's not about the message; it's about kill the messenger. And so everybody in some way, I got kicked off of Facebook. I got censored for a week for a post that's 5.5 years old. They dug deep to find that one on me, and it's their mission is, as I think of it, their mission is to keep us quiet. We are the squeaky wheel making a lot of noise, man. And they're trying to replace the wheels, or they're definitely they're definitely censoring us on every level. But those two troops killed, they are nothing more than really a sign or symptom of the bigger problem, which is an inept president, and that's at the helm, with a vice president that's absent, and thank God she's absent. I don't want her involved in any way. I heard a Marine the other day made the comment that this woman literally laid down to get to the position where she's at. And how ironic. I've actually heard liberals try to defend her, like it's okay. Everybody does that. And I'm like, that's what's wrong with this country, man. People just don't have any morals and ethics. You know what? And let's say it's true. Okay, let's just say that's okay. It's true. That's not something that, And then in the same breath, they're talking about how she's a great example for women and women of color. Like, so you're telling me a woman that slept her way in the office, slept her way through school, all the things that she did with a married man, that's a fine example for our children, for our daughters to look up to. That's, who are these people that are saying this crap? But yeah, like I said,
we should pause for a minute there, because that's a hell of a thing people are saying, right? Like, look, don't get me wrong. I think everyone on this podcast has overtly said women don't belong in combat roles, right? And
I thought you were going to say women don't belong in office.
Well, that too. But we'll get there in a second.
I was like, that's the part we say off camera.
So everybody here is said, women shouldn't be grunts. There's a ton of good reasoning behind it, et cetera, et cetera. And for that, we all get called misogynists and whatever other stupid crap people want to spurg in our faces. But we get called this by the same people who say a woman can't get elected, specifically a black woman, unless she sucks every dick she can find.
Yeah.
She has nothing to offer besides the lack of a gag reflex. That's it.
I mean, like, and like, that's like the kind of implicit like insult that is like, well, no, there's nothing you can do to do that, so you have to suck and fuck your way to the top. It's like, shouldn't you be citing merit? Shouldn't you be citing like because I'm sure if you wanted to, you could dig and find something she did and be like, look at that. But instead, it's no, you have to suck and fuck your way to the top.
There's lots of stuff she did. It's just horrendously unpopular with her party. Incarcerating record numbers of black males. But, that doesn't matter, right? that doesn't matter. You don't vote for me, you ain't black, right? Keeping them in prison because it's free labor for the state
of California.
Matter,
right? The 94 crime bill, right? I don't want my children growing up in a racial jungle, right? I mean, what's that? It doesn't matter. But
yeah, and we keep, and the thing that gets me is everybody's like, we keep making noise, we keep bringing these topics up, almost with the expectation that we're going to be able to reach the morons on the left, and they're going to understand this, and they're going to convert and do the right thing. That's never going to happen. Somebody asked me, I read somewhere as well, it's not about, enlightening the sheep, so to speak. It's actually waking up the lions. It's like, we're,
exactly.
we're not gonna, we are not going to in any way convert these people to what I think is common sense, because it's no longer common sense. They have drank the Kool-Aid. People use the term cognitive dissonance all the time. When the truth stares them in the face, they're still in denial. And actually, it's a psychosis. And the theory is that if you repeat a lie enough times, and you say things over and over for 60 to 90 days, no matter, and then the person believes it, no matter how much truth you display in front, they are unwilling to admit they were wrong. In fact, I think it was Adolf Hitler that said it, that if you tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth, right? And people will believe it, So we've long gone down that road, man.
There's a name for this, and I'm going to screw it up, but it's something like first truth or some nonsense like that. Whatever you hear first, you're most inclined to believe. And this is the premise of the get messaging out early, right? And so this is why, in the world of apparently, I am just going to actively try and get strikes now. Why, as soon as you run out with COVID's the most dangerous thing in the world, right? And then it doesn't matter what the stats say, and the stats are always lagging, right? Like, you can't get statistics that are worth a damn in 5 minutes, but you can say anything in 5 minutes. So when I am sitting there, as I did at the beginning of last year, with a bunch of stats going, this is not really that big of a deal. Yes, if you are 85, you have 5 comorbidities, and you have one of those is that you have somebody else's organs and you've been taking immunosuppressants for the past 15 years. You should do things to avoid this disease. Everybody else, carry on, and what are the stats borne out over and over and over again? That's still true.
It's what Dale was saying about being the squeaky wheel, and it's one of those like shitty memes you see that's been reshared 100,000 times, and it's all pixelated. But like, I do think it's a great line that if the situation was hopeless, the propaganda wouldn't be necessary. And
so,
well, hold on, but so I know, Don, I know, Black Pill Don, but the more we get censored, sure, they're banking on you shutting up. They're banking on you getting demoralized, right? And all you can do is, you're right, you're not going to quote unquote wake someone on the other side up as much as they think that they're not going to wake you up. And you're saying, well, what do you mean? I'm the one that's awake. But what you can do is be the change you want to see in the world. And before you say that's some starry-eyed bullshit, no, but sincerely, when I send my links to friends, they're like, well, that's Tommy with, Dale and Dawn, and they're just they just immediately shut it out. Those are as I would shut them out if they sent me a link to a podcast they did with all their liberal friends. I'd be like, yeah. But the point of what I'm saying is so what I was banned for, recommending vitamins that were recommended by not just a person, by Dr. Peter McCullough, the most published cardiologist in world fucking history. And then not even saying, although I did say it all the time, not even in that video saying, hey, if you want to get the vaccine, I'm like, just go for it. That wasn't what this is about. I didn't say shit about ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. I just said, here's some vitamins that you can get at Walmart that, the most published cardiologist in world history says can probably help you. It costs about $7 a month. Because that's the video that got me kicked off for good. Now, when I have friends saying, because last week I interviewed Tucker Max, and so I sent that to a bunch of my friends who, Republican and Democrat alike, are all just, we were all college bros at one point. They're like, oh, well, the overwhelming responses I've been getting the last 48 hours are, hey, man, I can't find the video. And to which I've responded, well, my channel's been banned. And they said, oh, what'd you finally do? And I send them the video of the 4-minute video of me saying, take these vitamins. And then I send them a screenshot of the email saying that's what I was banned for. The purpose of this whole rant is that has shifted a lot of their views more than anything I could say about, oh, they stole it from Trump. That when they're going, wait, you really got banned for that? And I'm going, here it is. That is a red pill that, it's not televised. It's not broadcasted. But you're seeing a bunch of people just in my immediate circle who otherwise would never listen to a word I said about how we're being censored and conservatives are being targeted. They're all now going, you got removed for that? And I don't have to say, I told you so. I just say, yeah, they're not stupid. They're putting the pieces together and they're going, Oh, okay. So I don't think all is lost. All is lost if we give up and just say, I'm not trying anymore. Then all is lost.
So there's a bunch of stuff that you said in there that is worth addressing. Not the least of which is I realize that everyone and their brother, like, oh, be the change you want to see is just a dumb platitude. Well, let me tell you what that sounds like in NCO course. It is lead by example, you dumb motherfucker. Because if you don't, if you're fat and you're over there telling your troops, hey, be physically fit, they're like, I don't know, apparently you could be an NCO and be fat. If you don't know how to clear a room and your troops are over there and you're over there going, oh, you better learn how to clear a room and save your life, your troops are going, you made it to NCO, you somehow managed, and everybody knows this, right? If you want someone to be taking your advice, you better be doing it, right? And no, this doesn't mean you have to be perfect. No, it doesn't mean that, like, I don't know, you in the world of the military, you take leave, you've come back with 2 extra pounds, 5 extra pounds, whatever, and everybody's like, oh, got that Thanksgiving dinner, didn't you? Right? But if the first thing you do is like, yeah, now I'm gonna eat this donut, then everyone knows you're a douchebag, right? And no one cares what you have to say. But if the first thing you do is come back and you're like, yeah, man, I got after that Thanksgiving dinner, and you know what? Now it's time to get back in the game. Now it's time to hit the gym twice as hard. Now it's time to, fucking run in the morning and the afternoon until my 5 extra pounds are gone. They're like, oh man, this guy both knows how to get after it in like a good and positive way, and knows how to make up for it when he goes home and is lax a little bit, right? Like, so, okay, sure, you can take a vacation ever, and you can come back and get after it. So as much as, the civvy world gets, oh, it's just a dumb platitude, man. Like, and look, it doesn't mean you should ignore good advice from people who aren't following it themselves. On the other hand, it's much easier to sell that shit if you're actually doing it.
Yeah. So it's, I know, I love every once in a while when I have these conversations with Dale, I just kind of realize I'm like, Dale and I have such wildly different experiences where I have to like dance around and put out podcasts and like lead by example when I have to like confront an enemy, and Dale's just used to shooting the enemy in the face. It's just so much different. I'm like, I need to show through eloquence and example, and Dale's just like target acquired. But yeah, man, it's kind of how it feels to me, and so I don't think all is lost. And I think if we shut up and we go, well, it's over, well then it's lost. But listen, man, you don't need this PR, right? A hot chick with big tits doesn't need a PR team. She can go anywhere, and men are implicitly.
She's got a PR team.
Exactly. But that's the thing is like, if you need, what's that quote? It's if it can be destroyed by the truth, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. It's going to take a while, and it's not going to happen today or tomorrow or this year, but it will dissolve and break apart. Just like every doctor smokes Lucky Strikes, or pregnant women, we enjoy a Miller Lite. There's nothing wrong with Agent Orange. We see all these things, and in time, from 1999, you can find commercials from the Sackler family going, I hurt my back on the construction job, but then I got Oxycontin and I got my life back. It takes time, but it does come out, and it will come out. So why not just accelerate it and just push it forward? Just push it forward.
This is a thing that has been strangely popular discussion-wise in my life over the past, actually, since we've spoken last, which was like, what, 48 hours?
40, if even.
Is a ton of people have come to me and been like, well, but we need to save everybody. And I'm like, you're not saving everybody. And if you don't believe that, like, you tell me the list of things we have to do to get AOC to stop being a ridiculous communist, right? And if we can at least agree that that one dumb broad is lost, then presumably a bunch of other people are too. And you don't need them. You shouldn't be trying to get them. You don't go anywhere near them, right? To the Dale's point a minute ago, you're trying to wake up the lions. The sheep, they're busy, right? They're doing whatever the hell they're doing, and they have no interest in what you're doing. There are some people that are right on that line. Okay, maybe you spend some time there, maybe you don't. That's up to you. You spend your resources, time included, how you want. But there are a ton of people who have, over the years of doing this podcast, and I've been doing it for 5 years now, have come to me and said, man, I had no idea that things were stuff that you just say off the cuff. You don't think about it. It's just stuff that you just know. And I had no idea any of this worked like this. And that is such a regular thing that it has been going on. I started this in 2017, and I think the most recent one was about 2 weeks ago. It is a continuous process where people just show up and go, I had no idea, man. It's just how has it gotten here? I said, well, mostly because no one paid any attention up till now, right? And make no mistake, no one's paying attention now. There's just some dickhead like me who's going, do you people see this? This right here? This is happening. And when things like Kabul happen, people get upset, and rightly so. And then a bunch of people go, well, how did we get to a position where there's a 4-star general that doesn't think that a fortified airfield in complete control of the U.S. military is a tactical position worth saving until we got American citizens out? And you go, well, that's a mighty good question now, isn't it?
It's Dale, what do you think about or can you explain what happened with all the U.S. veterans that went over to start like exfiltrating U.S. citizens?
I don't know. And I don't know how many actually were able to go. The problem is getting commercial aircraft that are willing to go. The other problem with commercial aircraft is a lot of times the insurance companies aren't covering the aircraft. So like, yeah, you want to fly your bazillion-dollar airplane over there? We ain't covered it if it gets shot down.
Yeah.
So there's a reluctance with commercial aircraft to go do that, right? And so a lot of guys want to go. I was lined up to go with at least one group that never came to fruition. They actually had resources. They had the means to get the aircraft, but it just the whole thing just kind of fizzled out. And it went from getting them out on an aircraft to the next one was getting them out on a bus going across the Pakistani border. Good luck with that. And the message I just got from the guys down on the ground, my guys on the ground, that we're now going to ride the bus instead of fly the airplane, is that basically they blocked all exit out of the city with buses. They shut down the bus as well. So there's no way for these guys to get out except on foot or maybe on a vehicle if they're not stopped first. In fact, they're literally knocking door to door. And so one of my guys who happened to be what I would call very high risk because of what he did with me and all that over there.
Sure.
They literally knocked on his door looking for him. The Taliban did. And he said, I don't know where that guy's at, but he doesn't live here. Check the house next door. And they left. But they were actually looking for him, and he lied his way out of it and split, right? So with his family. And I mean, that's how close it's getting. They're out there literally hunting these guys down, and they're killing them. I don't know where I saw a message where literally they captured this guy's brother. They ended up forcing the brother to go to the other brothers and the father. And along the way, they finally got a hold of this guy that they were looking for. And they summarily executed everybody in front of him, all his brothers, his dad, and everybody else. And then they finished him off at the end, So, so that's where everything's at. People keep asking me, how do we get over? Well, we're down to the 11th hour, man. Literally, we're not. I hate to say it, but this is not going to go. It's not going to end like they thought it was. Not everybody's going to get out. Americans are getting left behind. In fact, now the U.S. government's telling people don't come to the airfield. Where the hell are they supposed to go, right? It's first they tell you come to the base, then they tell you don't come to the base. Then they tell you to hide, and then send an email requesting extraction. This is our government, man, that's doing this kind of stupid shit. And now we got the president saying, I'm sticking to my guns. We're pulling out on August 31st, knowing damn well not everybody's going to get out. Okay. And here's what I'm wondering is, okay, what happens if we don't get out August 31st? Okay. What are the Taliban going to do? What is ISIS going to do? Everybody talks about, well, these guys don't like each other, but you know what? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So why would these two organizations not collaborate a little bit, and attack us?
Nothing from history. And by the way, history, I mean 10 years ago, right? Who doesn't remember? ISIS is the JV team, and the Taliban knows that. And so we're not worried about it.
And you see they're the JV team, all right. And but no, isn't it as of yesterday or 2 days before? Not just don't come to the airfield or don't do this. The State Department is now saying there will be repercussions for private planes fueling up in the nations around Afghanistan coming into Kabul. So it's not even, fuck if your insurance doesn't cover it. They're now saying, don't you goddamn, at a certain point, it starts to look like they want optics of a slaughter.
So, all right.
I had another group message me or call me yesterday. Literally, they're trying to organize an expo, and they said right now one of the issues they're having is arms, right? Getting the ITARs, bringing weapons with you, blah 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 blah. And I hate to say it, but I'm like, you would think that the Secretary of State, the State Department, U.S. government would go, you know what? Take your weapons with you. Go save these Americans. We're going to overlook the old ITARs issue because you guys. And here's, why ITARs was established, right?
What's ITARs?
The international trade. Basically, it's a law that it stemmed from the international trade of arms, right? And so you and I can't go sell guns. I got a gun shop here. I can't sell guns to a foreign government unless I get a export certification from the State Department saying, okay, we approve of this, right? And if you don't, it's fines and jail time. And the stupidest shit. I mean, one company was selling luminescent sticks, chemical sticks, right? For illumination, and they got fined some ridiculous amount for every stick that they sold, right? And so they were selling, pallets of these things. Anyways, it's just really bad.
What weapons means is not what you think. You, dear viewer, when you think weapons, you probably think rifles. ITARs means if it's ever been used on a battlefield. So international distributors of duct tape, stand by.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. And look what we've done. We've armed literally the Taliban with over 600,000 small arms, right? Millions and millions of rounds of ammunition, over 200 aircraft. I would say we're the biggest. The U.S. government is the biggest ITAR violators out there, right? And I understand. Well, we're going to leave it behind for the. We left it to outfit the Afghan National Army, and of course it all got lost, in the takeover. But nonetheless, we still armed them, and they should be fucking mad if I bring my AR-15 and my 45 with me to go over there to protect myself and the people I'm trying to get out. But that's the game they're playing, and that was the issue these guys had yesterday. It's like, man, what do we do? I'm like, you know what? I said, just take the shit and go, and then you can sort it out later. It's bad, man. So even now, right, they're applying all these laws and shit that they themselves don't apply, and moreover, who really gives a shit about the laws anymore? We're letting hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens come across the border. And by the way, I'm not going to name the oil company that I worked for as a consultant, but I actually went down to the border doing assessments on some of their facilities. And I got the inside intel reports about weapons caches. They were literally, this was years ago, we were literally finding RPGs, automatic weapons, cached in the desert. So the shit's been coming across the border. It's already here. And these people that are coming across the border, they're not looking for sanctuary and trying to run away from a tyrannical government. They want to come to the land of milk and honey, but they don't want to wait their turn in line, along with all the other people who have actually put their applications in and done it the proper way. And one other point I shut up is the other thing you were mentioning earlier about, you're right. I'm astonished as well. Lots of people I know have no idea what's really going on in the world. They have, they're bringing up news that's 2 months old. Like, dude, you know how far back that goes? That was history. Today the story is different, and they're just totally clueless because, they're not paying attention, which is exactly what they want you to do, is not pay attention, right? And this, I mentioned the other day about the solid majority, a bunch of cowards. They really are a bunch of cowards. They don't say shit. They think they're taking the moral high ground. In fact, they're not keeping their mouth shut, taking the moral high ground. They just don't have no idea what the hell's going on. That's why they're fucking quiet. And now they're going, oh shit, what do we do? Well, a little too late, asshole, because you weren't paying attention at the wheel. you know?
Yes. While you're crashing into the tree is not the time to start going, maybe I should be driving. Like,
oh man,
So-
what happened, man? What happened?
So how many? So this again, this shows how little I know. How many U.S. citizens are in Kabul? I mean, is it U.S. citizen or is it specifically around the war effort? This isn't,
Okay,
this
so
isn't some like
the really short
European like
answer to
study
that?
abroad. Well, how many are there? And it's
The
today's
really
August
short
29th, 2:34 p.m. Eastern time. I mean, the 31st is we're looking at like what, like
Day after tomorrow?
34 hours,
Yeah, something like that.
33
So
hours, 25 minutes.
the real answer to your question is nobody knows.
Okay.
And that is probably a bigger problem than anything else, right? Because what is going on right now is massive numbers games. There is a very high likelihood that whenever we ran the first one of these episodes, there were somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 30,000 Americans, either actual citizens or green card holders in or around Afghanistan and most of those are going to be near Kabul. And that is seemingly best estimates. However, according to the federal government, they've pulled 42,000 people out of there as of, I think, day before yesterday. Now, where the hell do they get 42,000 people? And the answer to that presumably would be, well, it's not just U.S. citizens that we're talking about. It's interpreters. It's, guys that Dale ran with. It's lots and lots and lots of people that have helped an American war effort over a long period of time that are going to be killed by the Taliban because they did pro-American things. However, that picture of a plane that was going around, oh, there's 800, no, there's 600, no, there's 457. Who the hell cares? It was a C-130 loaded to the gills. And that group of people, no one has any idea who the fuck those people were. Now, presumably, there is some quantity of those people who are indeed the people we were trying to get out. However, we know for a fact that that plane is included in the number of people that the U.S. government says they got out. We also know for a fact that there was no vetting of any variety of the people who came through there. We have no idea if we just imported 42,000 Taliban members. Now, that's pretty unlikely. Statistically speaking, accidentally, we probably got somebody that we wanted. But somewhere between 1 and 10,000 people should not be here at all for any stretch of the imagination, for any reason. And we're counting them as people that we have gotten out because the US government came out to begin with and said, well, we suspect that there are 80,000 people that we need to get out of Afghanistan. See, we've already hit the halfway mark. And so what we really end up with is they are just saying, well, hey, we hit numbers, regardless of who the hell we pulled out. We did hit this number. So see, we're close. And that looks good on a headline, but it absolutely screws if all we're going to do is go, oh, see, we hit the 80,000 number. Well, if you pulled out 25,000 Taliban, that's not a good fucking thing. That's a bad thing. But you have no idea who you pulled out. You have no idea who these people are, where they came from, or what they're doing. Yes, the press that who are bitching something fierce that yesterday or Friday afternoon, I forget which, the Marine Corps grabbed all the press that were at Kabul airport, all the American press, and shoved them onto a plane. Now, I feel like we can be pretty certain that those people are indeed Americans because they are the American press who came from here, went there, said, hey, Marine Corps, we're the American press, and got to stay there for a couple of days. And then the Marine Corps rounded them up and sent them back. However, they're also being included in the number of people who have been sent back. And they're not the people we're trying to send back.
That's like sending a plane to go get people, and then when the plane returns, saying we've acquired one more U.S. plane.
Yes,
motherfucker.
That's exactly what they're doing,
motherfucker.
So whenever it is that you're reading these numbers off of headlines or reading these articles, I mean, they are telling you the truth. They have moved that many people. They are lying overtly about who those people are, what they know about them. And this, again, I think is a thing that means a lot more to vets, specifically who have stood a post in the middle of the desert anywhere at any point in their entire life. Because, well, look, I checked 2,000 people at this checkpoint, but a homeboy over there had 4,000 batteries on his mini bike. And that does not mean that guy simply by himself rolling through here does not make me think we have 4,000 friendlies. We might have 3,999, but if Homeboy is rolling around with 4,000 batteries, he's going to blow something up. He is. And there's no two ways about that.
So like 2 hours ago, the U.S. drone striked a suicide bomber. 9 minutes ago, this is from 9 minutes ago, The Guardian, Afghanistan Live News, another blast reported near Kabul. That was updated. Yeah, that was updated at 2:34.
Shocking.
26 minutes ago, militant, they think there's mortar fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it seems like there's another explosion.
So one of my direct briefings on the way to Afghanistan was from the guys that we were relieving. And the guys that we were relieving had they lost a lot of guys, right? And so they had a lot of really, really good information earned the really, really hard way. And so I think it was a captain, and he was the commander. They had just gotten back, and they brought him over to give us a briefing. And so he says, look, I know what they're telling you about patrols, at least if they're telling you what they told me, right? And mounted patrols and this sort of thing. And you get in the fight, and then you go assault the enemy and that sort of thing, or you go and you get out of the kill zone. These are really the two options that we teach, right? And let me tell you how that's going to go. You're going to go into a valley. The second vehicle is going to get IED'd. After the second vehicle gets IED'd, the first is going to take a couple seconds to stop. That's just reality, right? So he's going to take a couple seconds to stop. He's going to probably stand by for orders, or he's going to punch it and get out of the kill zone. And as soon as that happens, you have effectively cut a mounted patrol in half. And if they're really good, they're going to get second or last vehicle, depending on how many vehicles you have in this convoy. As soon as the second IED goes off, again, if they're really good, the small arms fire is going to start. Within a minute, the mortars are going to start. And they're not going to let you out of there, no matter what you do. So if you end up in this position, don't, dear commanders, and I know you're all going to want to get out of the vehicle and start assaulting things, don't even call the Kazovacs. Call for fucking air. And you get air on station, and you get it now. Because when air gets on station, you'll get a break. You'll get a breather. And during that time, you can call Kazovacs. During that time, you can work to get out. During that time, you can move a vehicle. You can do whatever the hell you want. But if you get out of there and you try and fight them face to face, there's going to be 4,000 motherfuckers there. And you're going to lose half your fucking squad, half your fucking platoon. Because if you don't get something bigger, badder, and meaner on station right now, they will kill you. This policy did not go away because we got out of Afghanistan. That's how they work. Oh, there's a small thing. We can assault the small thing, and the small thing can't fight back. Okay, hammer the small thing. And so when you get 10, 20,000 civilians, who, by the way, let's be honest, the military is not letting carry AK-47s if they can avoid it, right? Once you are in U.S. military controlled area, you're not carrying a weapon. That's not a thing. And for good reason, right? You're presumably not carrying a suicide bomb either, which is why if you look at where these suicide bombs went off, it was at checkpoints, because you can't get through the checkpoint with a bunch of explosives strapped to you, but you can get to the checkpoint. And over and over and over again, this will happen, because what we are doing is we are creating prey at the Kabul airport. And the worst people in the world are looking at that going, oh, they can't fight back. Hey, Muhammad, here's your 72 versions. Just push this button. And as soon as that happens, small arms fire starts. As soon as the small arms fire starts, you have seconds, because let's be honest, most likely right around the time someone pulled that trigger, someone put down a mortar tube. And right after they put down the mortar tube, you know what they did? They grabbed a mortar and they went like this. And mostly what that 30 seconds you're waiting on is time of flight. That round's got to go up and come back down. So mortar emplacement, time of flight. That's your difference between trigger pull and when you get the mortars. That's how it goes. And that is not different today than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's the same TTPs. And we know this. We know it.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that happened to me. I mentioned one of my book stories, but we got ambushed one night, and I remember there was a lull in action, and we had to turn the vehicles around, and we were going to head north. And we had an Apache on station, helicopter, and he had to go back and reload down at Sadabad. So, we figured it's going to take 30 minutes turnaround time, come back. And so we had the vehicles positioned, ready to go. The plan was we would bring the helicopter in. He would strafe the road in front of us, and then we would start make our run to the north. And we're listening to the Taliban on their ICOM channel, right? We're listening to their commander, and he's actually instructing his soldiers, his men, because normally they hit you from afar. It's a far ambush, a couple 100 meters away. But what he had instructed them to do was to get right up on the road, okay? And he told them that he knew that the Apache was refueling and rearming, and that's what we were waiting on. So the reason he asked them to get on the road is because he knew the helicopter wouldn't to them on the road. He couldn't strafe the road with these Taliban on it. Moreover, he instructed these guys to run between the vehicles, creating a crossfire, if you will. And like Don said earlier, their plan was to actually hit the last couple vehicles going out, right? And they were literally talking about describing what weapons, systems they were going to get off the last two vehicles. So they knew what they wanted. They knew which vehicles they hit towards the end. They also knew don't fear the aircraft anymore, because all you got to do is get in the middle. You create a crossfire, and it just basically, it just turns into a shit show. And this is also what the Mujahideen used to do to the Russians. How do I know that? Because we literally had Mujahideen fighters with us, and the intel guys, they said the same thing. On an ambush on a Russian convoy, they would hit the last vehicle because they knew the front of the convoy was not coming back to get these guys. They got out of that ambush. They was not going to run back in it. And he goes, that's exactly what they do. That's how they rearmed and refitted themselves and hit the last couple vehicles in a Russian convoy. And, they're not dumb. We think because they're running around in sandals and a rag on their head and an AK-47, they're dumb, but they've actually got some pretty smart guys there, and they've learned a lot from us. Okay. I learned a lot from us. And to Don's point, you do have Confederates. We had them in our ranks all the time. We would get infiltrators from Taliban to join the ranks, and actually all they were doing is collecting information, collecting training that they were going to use against us later.
Yeah. There was, while I was in Afghanistan, Leatherneck, we had a range for the Afghan National Army, among many other things, right? So we're doing what amounts to pro-tem boot camp for these guys, right? Make them turn you from raw Afghani civilian into something that is a worthwhile fighting force. And there was a simple reality that once every 6 months or so, you could expect someone who was near the end of training to walk in, pick up his AK, walk towards the range, wait till everyone's in a big group, turn left and spray. It just happened. It happened all the time, all things considered. And for anybody, we could definitely vet these people. We couldn't even vet the guys that we had walking into Leatherneck that we were actively arming and teaching to kill people. But I'm to expect that we can vet 40,000 people in 36 hours? I don't think so. Come on.
I mean, at a certain point, though, you have to start looking at it and going, I always hate the people that say, oh, they're so stupid. The leadership's so stupid. And it's like, dude, these people are anything but stupid. They're, it's like saying the Nazis were stupid. Didn't they know they were going to get caught? No, yeah, they did. They fucking knew exactly what they're doing. And calling them stupid is as friendly to them as giving a serial killer an insanity deal or an insanity plea. It's not stupid. I'm sorry, but you don't rise to these levels of power, into these apex positions by being stupid. It seems like they're doing something very intentional. It seems like they're setting this up for a slaughter, or they're setting. It can't be more obvious that. I don't know what the end goal is. Is it rile up support so we go back in? Is it what is it? Is it demoralization? Is it?
So, I think some of this is
Keep talking. I got to pee.
confusing long-term goals with short-term goals of the morons. And I say morons not as in I think they're stupid and making a mistake, but these are the people that are either this stupid or they think we're this stupid, right? So there's a audio clip going around of the mother of one of the Marines that died, and it's brutal. You know, it's that kick you right in the feels kind of thing. And she is talking about, you know, my son died because dementia-ridden bag of crap wanted a photo op on 9/11. And to some degree or another, that's probably true. In the world of short-term goals, there's probably some truth to what she's saying there. Biden wanted to, or let's be honest, probably whoever handles Biden wanted him to, or you know, no gag reflex VP over there to be able to walk into Kabul airport on 9/11 and go, well, we got everybody out. And it turns out one of those, you know, those iron laws of combat, the enemy gets a vote, was pretty relevant here. It didn't matter if you wanted anything, right? You know, the Taliban came in and went, we don't give a shit. And that was that. And somehow or another, there is some hubris, I think, that goes along with this that says, well, you know, we could push around the Taliban, so they're going to know that we want a photo op, and that's what's most important. What? They don't care. They don't give a damn. They still hate you. And in the world of long-term goals, you know, there is a long-standing Democrat policy on war that goes at least back to Clinton. And for anybody who is old enough, you will remember all of this. And if you're not, you can look back to just Obama, where war is no longer going to require the infantry. We have ICBMs, drones, over the horizon capabilities. That's the new term, right? We're establishing an over the horizon engagement plan. And all of this comes down to the same thing. Well, what we can do is have some long-range munition, and that long-range munition is going to win all wars. And make no mistake, as an artillery guy, I am very familiar with a lot of this because there was a time where this was arty, right? You know, you can look back at World War I, arty ended trench warfare. It did, hands down. It turns out if you get a bunch of guys in a line and put them in a hole and then you drop bombs on top of them, they all die, right? And war had to change because artillery came into existence. And true as that was, it didn't mean all you needed to do was go set up an artillery battery and win wars. But there was a time where that was sort of the doctrine, right? You just, well, we'll get enough grunts to create a line in front of artillery, and then artillery will just win the war. And it turns out, you know what? That guy, no matter what you do, no matter how war changes, no matter what nonsense technology comes up, there is nothing in this world as effective as one guy with a fucking rifle and a bunch of his friends. That's it. That is what wins wars. That's how this goes. No changing it. Nothing you can do about it.
It always comes down to that's the common the common denominator at the very bottom, man. At the end of the day, is the man on the battlefield with a weapon. You know, all the other stuff is ancillary. You know, it's funny you brought the artillery piece because people, you know, when I teach about explosives, you're right. Guys that were getting killed were the guys in the trenches leaning up against the trench wall because the artillery rounds, when they hit the ground, that's Mach stem, if that's what it's called. Basically, is the shock wave that travels through the earth was traveling through their lungs because they were leaning up against the walls and it's killing them. Yep. And it was just a little trivia about World War II and artillery. But I was thinking too about this Marine colonel that came out and got relieved for cause for speaking out and basically holding his leadership accountable or asking them to, exactly explain what their logic was. And he got relieved, but, the guy actually told the truth. I know people will argue, well, he shouldn't be on YouTube and whatever, Facebook, in uniform, stating his opinion as an officer of the United States military. But we have gotten to the point where, the general, Miley and others, they can get on, they can talk about CRT and all kinds of bullshit that doesn't apply to the military And these guys were derelict in duty. They are just as culpable for this catastrophe as Biden. But I thought that the colonel was the hero out of this thing, and he said what most people are thinking, and I commend him for that. And then, but on the other side, there's this. I think she's a Spec 4, some chick out of Fort Hood,
a staff sergeant. A staff sergeant.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So you remember, the story, man, getting on there and running her, pie hole about martial law and that she would turn her guns on Americans if that's what's required. I'm like, are you kidding me? And this is the whole problem I mentioned the other day about my feeling was that the liberals have, this has been their agenda all along over the years, is to infuse combat arms with, liberal thought. And this would be an example of that, because in my time, no soldier, whether he's in 82nd Airborne Division Infantry, Special Forces, would have ever considered or thought it was plausible for us to turn our weapons on civilians. None of us would have ever done it. And here we are. She just threw that out there and was smiling and laughing about it like it's no big deal. I just hope somebody's got her name, her number, and remember what she said, because she just put herself on everybody's X in their crosshairs. What a dumb! You don't get out there and say that on uniform. It's one thing to speak the truth. It's another to go out there and try to scare and intimidate, the very people that are paying your freaking, your salary every month.
It's funny to look back at this, and I was definitely not in for the crossover of this, but Dale, I am fairly certain by years you were in that you were, is Clinton said effectively established armories in the way that we know them now in the military. And he did that because he said, there is no reason that regular active duty military need to have ready access to their weapons. And in 1,000 generations prior, there were rifle racks and barracks rooms, right? And armories existed for mostly bigger stuff, and or people who lived off base, which, by the way, also happened a lot less. But to this day, you can walk into the older barracks in the military and find out where the rifle rack used to be mounted, because there's bolt holes in the wall that are in this strange little square that don't make any sense unless you know that Clinton said, hey, get the weapons away from, lower enlisted. And that by itself should have been a hell of a thing that we all just stopped and went, wait a minute. The guys that we want at the drop of a hat to be up and ready to kill people that are the enemies of this nation can't have guns? Why? And make no mistake, there's been other stuff along the way. There was stuff before that. There was stuff after that. But that is a really big line. And it's one that we shouldn't have let go by lightly, but we did. And here we sit 30 years later going, well, maybe it's if you're the kind of tyrannical asshole that's going to purge the military of everyone who loves this country, maybe you don't want them having ready access to weapons. Maybe you don't want them ready to get up and go, you know what, we're not doing this. And maybe you do want to be able to control, if you're that kind of psychopath who wants to turn the U.S. military against, U.S. civilians, you want to be able to limit the distribution of weapons to those who will be loyal to you. And this is the kind of thing that the Red Army was doing in fucking Soviet Russia. Maybe we should have stopped all this nonsense way back then. And to that idea of people who haven't been paying attention, I mean, how many of you even knew that Clinton said, okay, we're taking rifles away from your frontline grunt. We're putting them in an armory to make sure he can't get to them, And this is the shtick, is we've been doing this a long time to get where we are today.
Yeah. Well, like I said the other day, 20 years, man, bazillions of fucking dollars to try to take out the Taliban just to give them Afghanistan back. It's just, the whole thing is just mind-boggling. And what's really the thing that really irritates me is, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the JCS, all these guys on there, you can say what they want. Well, we advise Biden not to do this, that, blah, 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 blah. but he decided not to do it. You know what? If you're a fucking officer at that level, and you know that this guy's going to disregard your guidance and it's going to get people killed, you should have just fucking took your jacket off, said, you know what, I'm out of here. Fucking walk away, man. Instead of just staying in there, because now every fucking guy on the JCS, everybody needs to be fucking goddamn brought to trial, man, for fucking dereliction of duty. In fact, treason, I would argue. They need to be held to account because they're all just as culpable as Biden was.
It's funny that Marine colonel, you should have laid your rank on the table. You should have just taken it off your shoulder, set it on the table, said, look, if you're not going to do something that's going to protect Americans and, you know, in his case, Marines, then you know what, take this shit. And if even one had, let's be honest, we'd all be championing that guy as a hero right now. Right. Like, whether or not that is courage in the face of the enemy is, look, you're sitting on the tail end of presumably a 30, 40-year career. And you said what's important is Americans and the American military. And look, we love you. But nobody did.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. It's hard to get for me every day. I'm just like, it's like living in a parallel universe, man. There's so much going on our front, you know, in this country and over there, and just internationally, what's going on. It's like, you know, and I listen to all these very intelligent people, these, you know, without a doubt are experts, you know, in their field, and they're speaking out, and almost as fast as they speak out, they're being suppressed. You know, but the ones that are just telling bald-faced lies, and I mean, getting caught in their own lies. Even Biden, you know, is being contradicted by people in his own administration. They don't even have their damn story straight. You know, when you see this, it just, you know, part of you feels like there's no hope, you know, but the other part of me is we just can't give up either. You know, we gotta just keep voicing our opinions, keep speaking out, and not go silent, because that's where they want us to go. And continue. And I'm going to use again, instead of resist, it's time to rebel. Instead of just resisting, it's time to stop and start pushing backwards. If we don't, man, they're going to mow us over, and it's getting closer. And the thing is, they've learned how to manipulate large masses of our society, you know, through this bullshit, these lies, and this, you know, this propaganda to support them, man. I mean, it's like we're fighting, you know, we're fighting a tidal wave of literally of naivety, gullibility, and just outright stupidity, man. People, you know, and there's no way I don't know how we're going to stand it, man. You cannot enlighten the sheep. They refuse to do it. They're happy with their head down, you know, sniffing the guy's ass in front of them, walking in a herd right over the cliff. There's no reaching them. There's just no reaching them, man. I don't know what the answer is, but I feel that down the road, you know, somebody brought something up. Maybe it was you brought it up the other day, Don, about Taiwan. Somebody brought it up. No, actually, it was another podcast I was watching. And the guy made the mention. He said, you know what? If I was China right now, I'd roll over Taiwan. I'd take it. Because here's your chance to grab it. Ain't nobody gonna be able to do anything about it. Nobody's gonna do anything about it.
Fucking take Seattle.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, at this point,
in the world,
take California too.
Yeah.
in the world of how hard this is going to be, and I don't, you know, for everybody listening, let me relay a personal story of my early time getting deep into this. Right, is I have hated feminists for a bunch of years because they are just the absolute most disgusting, worst people in the world anytime they're allowed to be, which, by the way, is progressively more often. And they will happily run out and tell you that, the guy who's willing to die for his brother on a battlefield is a subject of toxic masculinity and should be put in a rubber room and taught to, I don't know, cry out his feelings and suck dick to be trans inclusive or something. And they do a ton of other things, a lot of which have personally impacted my life. And so I've had a rager for these people for at least a decade. And somebody else brought something to do with a bunch of feminist concept to me. And I said, these people are horrible. They are destroying society. The things they are doing are overtly negative. You can clock what they've been doing for this amount of time, and you can go look. And the person I was talking to was a very good friend of mine's wife. We many years ago did construction together, and for those that have never done both, a construction crew is about as close as you can get to the military, right? A group of guys that you're in a bunch of dirt and shit and nastiness and sweating it out together. You get as close as you get without actually having been shot at. And so, a good friend of mine's wife, and I'm not actively trying to piss her off. And at some point she says, well, I'm a feminist. And understand that this is going to be the line that it is. There will be, it's not the things that are going to demoralize you, the things that are going to shut you down, stop you, shoot you in the foot, are not going to be guys with guns, right? Most of the time. Yeah, okay, maybe we get there at some point. But for right now, what makes this difficult is you have some sort of tie to somebody. And that tie will be exploited to get you to shut the fuck up. Because, and look, I was much younger to this game. I didn't know how to answer that. So you know what I did? I shut the fuck up. Probably shouldn't have. Lesson learned. But it's not gonna be. And it never is, right? So a very similar group of friends is after I got out of the military and, started working on getting myself this nice pooch that I've got here, and got out of fighting shape and all this other kind of stuff, was when the women in combat thing came up. It was, oh, so you want to fight Ronda Rousey? And I was like, well, no, I don't want to, as a middle-aged fat guy, fight the, female fighting champion in her prime. You want to come up, find somebody my age who's, middle-aged, who's out of shape, that is a woman, and let's see how a fight between her and I goes. You think that's going to go well? You think I'm not just going to knock her teeth out? It'll just be fine. In fact, go find the women who are at the bottom of the UFC women's fighting. You think me fighting them is going to go well for them? I might be a middle-aged fat guy, but clearly they're at the bottom of the skill chain here for those that are professional fighters. At some point, we do get to, I just grab you and beat you like a rag doll against the side of the ring until you stop fighting. And, oh, well, I mean, maybe, yeah, I guess that's kind of true. And clearly there's years between those stories, because it's either you let them exploit that you give a shit about people, or you don't. And the simple reality is they are so used to being able to exploit that, right? The same people who would tell you, don't talk about politics at the dinner table or religion, are the ones espousing their religion of socialism and telling you how great it is that we have a welfare state and we're supporting the LGBTQ AAIP to do whatever the hell they want. And then if you say anything, go, I don't want to talk about politics. I go, well, bitch, you started it, right? Either we don't talk politics, which is fine, or we do. But if we do, you're picking the fight. I'm just finishing it. And it's tough. It is. It personally makes you feel like shit, but you got to get over it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's, I started like posting like Trump memes in 2016. I legitimately have lost 99% of my friends. I've got like one or two friends from middle school that are still my friends, and two siblings. Like, no exaggeration. You can go back to the very first episode I did this podcast. It's pathetic because I'm like, I kind of want to do a podcast because then I can talk to people and make friends, and under the guise of it being a podcast. But I mean, truly. So, I mean, anyone listening, you can take my approach. They can't hold anything against you if they all hate you anyway. YouTube can't demonetize me when I was never monetized. So, like, I don't give a fuck about interviewing X, Y, and Z because I already lost everybody a long time ago. So, like, I just don't give a shit. But, we could also start with like bigger steps, like, like, should women still be allowed to drive in the United States? And, I don't think they should. Just small steps to slowly start and you're both staring at me, but I'm saying that to just, you got to just take it head on, right? I'm a feminist in the sense that I'm like, yeah, in the same way that I'm a masculinist. I don't give a fuck, right? Is
Dale's over there. I ain't a part of this shit.
Dale's like, honey, Tommy's drunk. No, but I mean, at a certain point, the only way you can go against this is you just have to start parroting absurdities. Like Tim Dillon's like, I think, Tim Dillon, the comedian's like, he goes, I think the View should all be men and the women can watch and the men discuss the issues. And maybe the women they'll serve drinks or something. And they'll come in and they'll say, I think Israel, and all the guys go, get out of here. Let the men talk. But I say that's because the only way to deal with this is you just have to ratchet it up to 12. So if they're like, I'm a feminist, you should be like, I was a little upset when Saudi Arabia let women start driving. I think it's a step backwards. It's the only way you can operate in clown world is to put on the wig and honk your nose. It's the only way. If you're trying to play a normal game, if you're trying to teach a dog math, the only thing dumber than the dog that can't understand math is the retard who thinks he can teach a dog calculus. Put on the clown wig, honk the nose, put on the big shoes, and just, tell women to raise the kids and don't worry about it, honey. The men will take care of it.
The next time you hear a bunch of feminists bitching about the rule of thumb, and that meaning that you could beat your wife as long as the stick was no wider than your thumb, pull that Boondock Saints quote. Rule of thumb? You can't do much damage with that. Should have been the rule of wrist.
I mentioned the other day that I was on the show with Alan West one time, and we were talking about women in the military. And he was getting my take on it. And so it's funny how, for example, I was in the infantry back in the 82nd. And I mean, the old saying was where men were men and the sheep were nervous. We would go out to the field for 6 weeks on intensive training cycle. And we would go on Monday morning, and we stay out till Friday night, and we come back, clean weapons, take the weekend off, go back out. We did that for 6 weeks straight. But for the time in the field, man, you're living out of, at the time we had the small rucksack, the small Alice. So you couldn't get a lot in there. And we had sea rations, right? So it's all canned food that you're humping around in your backpack. So there was no room in there for anything else, no room for warmies, extra clothes. In fact, the only thing we carried out to the field was a poncho liner or a wool blanket. And a wool blanket, you didn't carry that because if it got wet, it weighed 3 times as much as it did when it was dry. So you pretty much, in the wintertime, I still remember the first time I got in 82nd, January, on Fort Bragg, it's cold, it's freezing, it's sleeting, it's ice, and we don't get to go into a warm place. We dig a foxhole. That's where we sleep. If we sleep, we usually about 4 hours in a 24-hour period of time just to fill the foxhole up, to walk through the woods again, to go make some more foxhole, and do this over and over and over and over. And having time in the field, even as a LRP, long range reconnaissance, patrol member, when we were out there, it's like, for example, look, if you had to use the toilet, okay, the way you use the toilet was inside the patrol, right? You fucking shit in a plastic bag, you tied it off, and you put it in your rucksack, and you carried it out with you. You didn't leave behind sign. Even if you were in infantry, you had to take a shit, you did it right there in the foxhole, because you can't go outside the perimeter and take a shit for real because you might not come back. So you got to do it right there in the perimeter, and you always had somebody pulling security for you. Now, and my point was, everybody just thinks that everybody wants to fight the last war, right? Basically, men and women are driving in a convoy, get ambushed, they're shooting from their trucks, right? Yeehaw. But we can't fight the last war. We have to look at the other wars. So, for example, let's just say shit is the fan with China, and we find ourselves in Southeast Asia, in the jungles. Okay, we're not driving around in convoys on the road, moving to contact, where we can see for miles and miles. Now we're just driving around in the jungle or walking, where it's hot, it's humid. You don't get to change the uniform. You're sweating your balls off. And you get the shit and piss in front of your teammates, and everybody accepts it. And then at night when you go to sleep and you're freezing because it does get cold in the jungle, especially if you're wet, and you don't have any gear in your rucksack to keep you warm because it would take too much weight, too much volume. So what do? You snuggle up against your buddy just to get some body heat to stay warm so you can stay functional and operational. There's so many things to, the life of a soldier, a combat soldier, that is just completely not even considered, because the people that are crying, oh, women should be allowed in combat, are sitting on their couch in an air conditioner, heated house, and saying all this shit because they watched the news of the movie. And I went on as an expert, okay, in this job, because I was an infantryman. I was a grunt. I was a long-range scout. I was a Green Beret. I know how to live in the field. I know what it takes, whether it's covered in snow or covered in mud or covered in sand or covered with ants. I know what it's like. And I'm telling you, that kind of life makes for very intimate situations with your team, just so you guys can survive. And nobody's really considering that. And I can just imagine what would happen. Actually, I know what happens because I've had to do this one time. I actually had to take 5 females out on a combat patrol for training, but nonetheless simulate a combat patrol. I see how that can go down, and it doesn't go down well. Okay, there's a huge difference. There's a reason why you have weight divisions, and for example, in MMA and boxing and things like that, because when you're carrying a minimum of 85 pounds worth of equipment on your back, and usually that's just your rucksack. My load-bearing equipment alone was 35 pounds with 13 30-round magazines in it, which was standard operating procedure. Plus all my other, my water, my radios, and everything else that had to be on it. And then my rucksack that carried more batteries and more weapons and more ammo and shit. There's a requirement for power, a requirement for strength, that not even most men can do that, right? That's why with most guys, they fall out of the Q course, they fall out of Ranger school, they don't make it through boot camp, basic training, because they're men with a woman's body. And it's a scientific fact that men have, if women in their best condition, if you were to stand up side by side to a guy in the same weight division, would only achieve 80% of his muscle mass. Okay, so they're naturally underpowered already. And guess what? In this kind of work, as a Marine, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the infantry combat arms, you got to be able to carry a lot of weight, and not only carry a lot of weight on your back, but you also got to be prepared to carry your buddy in a stretcher. And I can tell you right now, even with 4 guys on a stretcher, that ain't no damn joke. Trying to carry a guy 100 yards, you got to set him down, rotate positions, or bring another guy in to take over, because, this is a strength exercise as well. And I think men are better adapted for it than women. So, we want to pretend like, women are equal. They're not equal. Okay, sorry, but they're not equal. Nature says so.
I know we've talked about this before, but I'm going to do it again because it's worth bringing up every single time this comes up. The Marine Corps instituted a program called the Lioness Program. And what the Lioness Program is they would take an infantry battalion and they would attach anywhere between a squad and a platoon worth of women to the infantry. And they would go out and do infantry things. And the things that the women who did that said at the end of it are truly enlightening, to the point that I wasn't a fan of the idea of women in combat to begin with for very, all of these reasons we're talking about. The things that they will tell you are so much worse than any of the things that most of us will say. They're of the, I don't know, something like 50, about half of them have printed some sort of testimonial of what that was like. And here's the way it worked: is an infantry squad goes out every day, multiple times a day. And the women would get attached to one patrol about per week. One woman gets attached to a regular squad patrol of 13 guys, right? And she's out there to search women because we're all very politically correct and we don't want to offend the Taliban. And so these women would do stuff like, one, carry a lighter load 100% of the time. All of them came back and said, look, whatever we were carrying, the men were carrying twice as much every day. The corpsmen are just fucking monsters because they're carrying a combat load plus all that medical gear. And the machine gunners are just, these guys are carrying 1,000 rounds of 7.62 on top of all the stuff that, we're carrying, plus all the other stuff they're carrying that we're not. And we would come back and we would get 7 days worth of rest, and they would get up 40 minutes later and do it again. This is not a debate. We were unable to move universally. We would come back and lay in a rack for about a day and bring each other chow because going to get food was too much effort. And these guys just got up and did it again and again and again and again. And were they tired? Hell yeah, they were tired. Didn't matter. They got up and did it again anyway. This is not a debatable issue. We should not put women in the infantry. It does not work like people say it does.
Yeah. Well, that's another symptom of the bigger problem, and we're so far down that road, we're not going to be able to reverse that. We're not, and even when a lot of women get killed and sons get killed because of women, nobody's going to change it. Nobody's going to undo this policy. They're just going to run with it because they can't change it. They'll lose face. I saw this coming along. This is one of the reasons I retired in 2001. Is I saw the writing on the wall then. When guys didn't have to have a physical fitness, didn't have to pass a PT test in basic training, didn't have to pass a swim test to be a Green Beret. They basically lowered it to no standards. And the argument was, well, once you get to your unit, your team sergeant, your squad leader, or your supervisor, he can train you. He can teach you how to swim. He can, help you pass a PT test. I had a water team in Special Forces. And so I expected when a guy showed up to my team, he's got to be able to swim, because tomorrow we might actually go do a mare ops, somewhere, where we're swimming in the ocean or in a river. And I don't have time to train the new guy how to swim. He's supposed to be able to show up to my team combat ready when he comes out of the Q course. But that all changed as well. So I realized this was back then. This was almost, this is 20 years ago. We were losing sight of, why, what the military is about. We are in the business of war fighting, and it is starting to become a social experiment even back then. I remember General what was his name? Shinseki. Oh, I can't even say it anymore. Shinseki. Yeah, he came to Fort Bragg and went to a Special Forces ceremony, and he was just in awe to see all these Green Berets. And he decided, right there on the spot, he goes, I want everybody in the military to get a black beret now. And they were like, but sir, the Rangers have a black beret. I don't care. I want everybody to have a black beret. And literally, he gave everybody a black beret in the Army just so they could feel good about themselves, and took the black beret from the Rangers that actually earned it. And of course, they ended up going with the tan beret now. But, the whole idea was to make everybody feel good about themselves and special. So I'm going to put a black beret on their heads, so they could feel like, kind of like a Ranger. And I had enough at that point. I decided I'm done. I'm getting out of here, because it's just, we're spiraling the drain at that point. Here we are.
This is a thing that I half wonder if we did to ourselves, right? Because you can still hear this today when people talk about, as long as you could pass the requirements to get in to be a Green Beret, then you should just be allowed to be a Green Beret. Well, first of all, quit lowering the requirements, and that might be a more applicable statement. Second of all, though, and basically anyone who has done combat things learned this the hard way, right? You went to boot camp. You went to some sort of school. You then went to operating forces. And the first thing you found out when you got to operating forces is that the sole purpose of all of the things you did up till now was to get out the people who absolutely, no matter what, cannot make it. Because all that, oh man, but you humped 15 miles with a 100-pound pack, and dear Marines everywhere, I hear you did. Okay, you humped 15 miles with a 100-pound pack with regular water, with regular food. First thing after you got out of bed in the morning. You didn't do it at 2000 because we need to execute a movement at 2000 after you've been breaking your balls off all day, doing whatever other training you've been doing, on your way to the thing that you have to be up at 04 tomorrow so that you can make it to the next training evolution. And guess what? All of that exists mostly to wash out the people who absolutely will not make it in combat. Everything along the way is to say, okay, you've met this minimum bar, get ready for the next challenge. Because
Yeah,
if you're
I've
not ready
always-
for the next challenge, fuck you.
Yeah, and I always tell people when people say, "Well, if they can meet the standards and requirements in training, why not?" Because the standards of training is not the same as standards of combat. There's a huge difference, and and that's what people think. Watch it. If you passed all the tests, you're good enough. Actually, when I went through Delta Force selection, 110 guys went through, 6 finished, 3 of us got selected, right? And I've said this before, I was the youngest guy at the time to get selected. And guess what? That didn't make me a Delta Force operator. All that meant was I had the acumen to go through 6 more months of training, intense training, which also, guess what, was a selection process. And a lot of guys didn't make it through that either. And then I remember when I went across the hall and I did get assigned to a squadron, the first thing the sergeant major told me, he said, selection is a continuous process. If you can't put out 100% every day, we don't need you. And so, just because I went through the training didn't mean I was worthy of being in the squadron. It meant that I was basically now given a hall pass to cross over, report to the sergeant major, go, Sergeant Major, I'm here. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Where do you want me? What can I do for you? And basically he said, you can do 100% every day. And if you don't, you're out of here. And I can tell you, going through OTC, or the Q course, is nothing like combat. It doesn't prepare you psychologically for combat. And not only that, all it does is give you a foundation of training that once you're in a unit, you have to build on. And that training that you get that you build on from the unit is not always just training. Sometimes that experience is from combat as well. That's part of your the learning curve, if you will. So I hate that when they say, well, meet the standard. No, just you met the standard just to get through the door to go to the next level. But selection is a continuous process, and the ultimate selection test is combat. If you come back or not.
This is another thing, and I hear this a lot from SF guys. Is the look, you put it out or we get rid of you. I envy you guys 100% for that. No joke, because in the rest of the military, hands down, if you've got just a piece of shit, you work around it because you can't get rid of them. And there's nothing you can do. You get to carry that guy right up until some unit requests somebody be transferred to them. And then, if you're lucky, you can get that guy out right then. Everything else, you just deal with that guy every single day. There was a guy, and I'm sure I shouldn't tell some of these stories, but there was a guy that, the way the military gets rid of these people, whether anybody likes it or not, is, oh, this guy's a piece of shit and he can't carry his weight. Let's just fuck with him until he goes AWOL, because there's nothing else we can do. And so for 6 months, 2 years, whatever, you're carrying this dirtbag. And for every, oh God, how much are you actually carrying, Don? Well, you're carrying his food, you're carrying his water, you're carrying his ammo, you're carrying his everything. Everyone else is weighed down and slower. Not just, we have to wait a little bit for this guy. Everybody else's life is worse in substantial ways. And, oh, well, maybe that just prepares you better for combat. That's all well and good unless you take that motherfucker to combat, right? Because that's where you need to not be carrying these people. That's where you need to not be weighed down while someone is trying to kill you. And you are. And there's no two ways about it. There are whole battalions that are effectively everybody else's shitbags. Shock of shocks, those guys take casualties. Weird.
I think that we should put together a team to prove just how toxic males are. We should, because Kabul is not from a complex web of geopolitical implications and war-fighting machinery, but rather it's the sole result of toxic masculinity. I think we should put together a team, just a ragtag team of the best female fighters out there. GoPros on all their shit, and we send them over to Kabul to liberate the people of Kabul and bring back American citizens and show once and for all that, women run the world. And when they are eventually captured, raped, and beheaded, maybe all this shit will stop.
Yeah.
I'm not on YouTube anymore, so.
I am.
Okay.
Oh yeah, whoops.
We're gonna have to live with it, man.
Yeah.
That's
Shit happens. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to live with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's wrap this one up. I gotta get ready for the next one. And yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not on YouTube anymore. So oh wait, let me check real quick. Let me see if there's any more news on what that blast in Kabul was. And
let me save you a lot of time. It's either mortars or suicide bombers. Almost 100% certain.
Oh,
I guess it's relevant whether or not it was a VBID.
Two Pakistani soldiers killed. Huh.
Pakistani.
I think. American. I think so. Well, this is good. A U.S. drone strike 2 minutes ago kills 3 children. Well, women,
that's
save us.
That's another thing, and I know it's going to spin out of control if I get too expansive, but we have talked before about, oh my God, the American military is killing all the civilians. They're probably not.
No, they're just laying no, they're not. They're going to exploit that. That's how they do it. And more propaganda.
Yep. Well, hopefully our ragtag team of trans women with blue hair. I can't wait for the Hollywood blockbuster, how they liberate us from Kabul.
Dear Antifa, we are recruiting to go to Kabul and save the day. Since you are 100% certain already capable and well armed, we will send you with your homemade riot shields and pepper spray, and you can go inform the Taliban of just how badass you are.
There you go.
I'd pay for that. I'd fucking pay. I'd live stream.
Oh man,
I'd live stream that shit. Fuck it.
Right.
ISIS doesn't need to upload those videos. We will. On that note, everybody, take care. God bless America. And Don's streaming, so Don can fucking finish his own shit whenever. Dale, till next time. Don, till next time.
All right,
guys. I'm gonna try to get on that soldier who just got back from Kabul, and if I can, then we'll do a Kabul cast 4.
Sounds good.
All right,
my dudes.